Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am back. I unfortunately yesterday had a bit of a kind of a rough day and also kind of a busy day, so I wasn't able to get to yesterday's video. I know we're probably going to do a whole different character discussion. I had a lot of different things happen, had my car break down, had an event to go to. So yeah, long story short, had a lot going on, but I'm back for today, and I'd figure I'd do something a little different. Rather than just reacting to certain like wrestling clips and stuff, I kind of want to take a look into the history of some of the wrestling and see where it started from, because there was guys before Hulk Hogan, there was guys before Ric Flair, before Dusty, before even Vern Gagne, if that's a name you recognize. But this is more so somebody that has been a major part of the wrestling business that I don't really know a whole lot about, but a whole lot of like guys talk about him. And one of those guys that talk about him is John Cena. Another guy probably talks about him a lot is Triple H, and a bunch of other guys who are eventually would become good guys in the business, because he's one of the first really big baby faces that we had. And I learned recently about kind of the synopsis of what happened with Buddy Rogers, who was the original Nature Boy, by the way, which Ric Flair took the name from. And so, but had like the looks of Gorgeous George or something like that. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. And this is the very guy that even beat Gorgeous George for the NWA title, if I remember correctly. Or was it... No, it was the first ever WWF world title while Vince's dad was in charge. So I'm not going to sit here and give you a whole story lesson. I'm going to let the people that know how to do it do their job, and let's go ahead and get into the video. Shout out to
When you hold a recognized world title for 11 combined years across two reigns, the moniker of living legend is pretty much apt for the remainder of your lifetime. And yet for Bruno Sammartino, his accomplishments as a celebrated wrestling champion only tell part of the story. In a world where our heroes sometimes let us down with moments of weakness or well-covered deceit, Sammartino was the genuine article. He defined himself with as much integrity and principle outside of the ring as he did in between the ropes. A super athlete with seemingly limitless strength, Bruno's muscle was just as strong as the character of the man himself. I'm Jack from ColorHard.com, and this is the captivating career of Bruno Sammartino.
Man, he looks like a classic Hulk comic. Like, if you've seen what a classic Hulk looks like, it has that same square features. It's really interesting. Hairy dude as well. And mind you, this guy is like super important. There's something that will be mentioned later on that will make Roman Reigns look like nothing. So, be prepared. It's very interesting.
At one time a weightlifter with Olympic dreams, Italian expat Sammartino became a local legend in his American hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where his feats of strength brought him celebrity on the regional television show of broadcaster Bob Prince in the 1950s. He was discovered by wrestling promoter Rudy Miller, who coaxed the young Sammartino into the business. Getting his start locally, Sammartino made his debut in the autumn of 1959, defeating Dmitry Grabowski in under 20 seconds. Months after his debut in early 1960, Sammartino made his Madison Square Garden debut, where the powerful novice defeated notorious wildman Bull Curry in just 5 minutes. These short matches were par for the course for Sammartino in his early days. Dominant wins over a bevy of villains, establishing the youngster as an irresistible force. Throughout 1960, Sammartino's list of victims included Lou Albano, Skull Murphy, Angelo Savoldi, and rather famously, the 600-pound Haystacks Calhoun. It was against Haystacks that Sammartino astonished New York fans by lifting...
Now, mind you, this is, and I'm going to give a little more context here and there. This is like 50s, 60s. This is way before, I don't even say 40s and 50s. Because this is when Vern Gagne was starting to get his thing, as I mentioned before. Buddy Rogers was becoming popular. He was a popular heel back then. They didn't even have those terms, but he was that character back then. Bruno was the highly skilled, like, think of him as a more bulked up, technical Hogan, who knew how to wrestle. Like, and I'm not saying Hogan never knew how to wrestle. He did. It's just like, he had a formula that worked in the 80s. Here, it's a little bit different. Pro wrestling still had some elements where, certain people would win. Like, they would already preemptively still say, okay, we need this person to win. But also, they didn't have everything else developed yet. They didn't have people running the ropes. They didn't have certain techniques developed yet. They knew how to take bumps and stuff, but they didn't really have any wordage for anything. So this is like the small beginnings, because pro wrestling has been around since like the 1930s. The concept of wrestling itself has been around for thousands of years, since the Greco-Roman days. Like, there's a style everybody knows is Greco-Roman. It's been around for a long time. There's an older Roman martial art called Bacratian. I think that's how you pronounce it. It means all the might. That is another martial art that a lot of people don't really know about, and what helped create kind of what pro wrestling is today, a mix of punches and grapples. With some, of course, I think they call it like, what they say. Who was that person that said that? Said something along the lines of having theater and athleticism coming together to make something interesting. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here and there that I doubt we'll be able to react to a Bruno Sammartino match. I might watch some of his stuff after this, but I'm going to let you know, like, these are the reasons why there were a lot of good guys. He's like the start of that, pretty much.
Calhoun off of his feet, something very few, if anyone else, was able to do. Sammartino gained experience in those earlier years working with noted names such as Eddie Graham and The Crusher in cities such as Chicago, Montreal, and San Francisco. Late in 1960, Sammartino tangled with fellow babyface Antonino Rocca, the wave of the future facing the Garden's top babyface star for over a decade. The two came to a stalemate in their Big Apple battles, with Rocca winning the first match via DQ before going to a 34-minute curfew draw against one another 3 weeks later. In the spring of 1962, Bruno had a reported falling out with New York promoter Vincent J. McMahon, which led to him being put on a national suspension where other promoters would not use him either. So for the next year, he primarily wrestled in Toronto, Canada, where he wrestled NWA World Champion Buddy Rogers on several occasions and held the international tag team titles alongside Whipper Billy Watson. Sammartino had become a major sensation in Toronto, aided in part to their large Italian population in the area, and before long, McMahon tried to bring Bruno back to New York City. At first, Bruno refused due to the effective attempt at blacklisting him, and because he found himself loyal to Toronto promoter Frank Tunney, who utilized him when others wouldn't. But he did return in early 1963, reportedly because part of the deal to bring him back involved having him beat Rogers, now recognized as the WWF World Champion. Sammartino returned to MSG that February, teaming with Bobo Brazil to defeat...
And Buddy Rogers was the guy that Flair based a lot of his ideas and character off of. The blonde hair, heck, even the moniker of Nature Boy isn't technically Ric Flair's, although everybody knows Ric Flair as the Nature Boy, or as, with the accent, the Nature Boy. But here's the interesting part. You learn a lot about wrestling. Ideas are either stolen from another wrestler or stolen from two wrestlers coming together. Like, for example, Hogan is the combination of, as he explained in an interview talking about Dusty Rhodes, the combination of the big, huge muscle of superstar Billy Graham and the charisma and the ability to connect to the crowd of Dusty Rhodes could put together. And that's what made Hogan Hogan. Of course, with his own elements added, and eventually the gruff, rough, yeah, brother kind of ordeal. I feel like I should put on a bandana, but I'm not going to do that. But, actually, I might put this up a little bit later in the video. But I actually, unironically enough, before he passed away, I actually got a picture with him Me and my brother did, and I'll try to keep it short as possible. But basically, at the time, he was promoting his beer at the time, which there's a crazy case going on with it now. I'm not going to explain that. So, pretty much back in 2024, December 2024, I think it's the first couple weeks, we find out he's going to be coming to Broken Arrow, or Oklahoma specifically, and he's going to be in the Tulsa area. And we went down to where we were supposed to meet him, all the way to 151st. If y'all are Okies, you know where I'm talking about. 151st at the Country Mart, which is now under a different name, if I remember correctly. We went down there. We waited in line. I started watching some of his older stuff, and something happened to where he ended up going to a different location. And so what happened next was this. We ended up finding out, okay, they're going to a completely different liquor store over on, what is it? On 71st and Elm, B&B Liquor. We went there, waited in line, got to just sit there and wait. We got there pretty early, so we got to get in and get out pretty quick. And so we only waited maybe like 20 minutes in line, and as soon as it was our turn, and I saw the man, he's 6'4" and in his 70s. I'm telling you, I had no idea what to say, because this is the first time I'm ever meeting a wrestling legend. And it's crazy. Did not keep the story too long. I'll say this much. Shook his hand. Hand felt like it was enveloped in his. Didn't know what to say. Wrapped around my arm with him, and I'll probably pull it up in a moment. It's me and him just having that picture, and I'm wearing my RBTC hoodie in the photo. And then right after, Seth comes up. My brother Seth comes up. Casual as anything. He's like, "Hey, how you?" And he says, "Hey, how you doing, brother?" And Seth's like, "Oh, I'm doing great. How you doing?" And then it's crazy. Seth's very much one of those nonchalant guys when he can be, and so it's interesting. But anyway, back to Bruno Sammartino.
Johnny Barend, and the magnificent Maurice. Bruno's return saw him guzzling up the opposition with his usual overpowering spirit. A list of opponents that included Boris Malenko, the father of Dean Malenko. In March 63, Sammartino lost a 25-minute match to now NWA World Champion Lou Thez in Toronto, but his real prize lay mere
Anybody
months
know who
ahead.
that is?
The following month, Sammartino fought Rogers to a
world.
no contest in a WWF title bout in Washington, D.C. A match in which Buddy Rogers submitted to Sammartino's backbreaker, but since he jumped Bruno before the bell, the match had never
he made the
started.
backbreaker.
In the minds of fans, Sammartino was the uncrowned champion, but his coronation need not wait much longer. On Friday, May 17th, 1963, before nearly 20,000 fans inside Madison Square Garden, Sammartino tore into Rogers, hoisted him up in the same backbreaker submission, and drew a surrender from the ailing champion. In just 48 seconds, the 27-year-old Bruno Sammartino was the world heavyweight champion. It had long been reported that Rogers was suffering from serious heart problems at the time and wasn't in good enough shape to have a real match, hence the Sammartino Blitz victory. A rematch between the two was scheduled for October 4th of that year at the Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City, but Rogers pulled out weeks before the bout. Instead, Sammartino was issued a very sizable replacement, the 400-pound Gorilla Monsoon. The Manchurian Monster actually won the match via referee's decision due to excessive blood loss on Bruno's part, but he didn't win the title per the rules of the day. Gorilla remained a massive thorn in Sammartino's side, going to a double countout with him at the Garden later that month before defeating Monsoon via countout after a 25-minute brawl in November, after Sammartino launched the super heavyweight from the ring. It wasn't until June 1964 that Sammartino decisively beat Gorilla Monsoon, defeating him in a 2 out of 3 falls match just 1 month after the two battled to a 70-minute draw again at the Garden. Sammartino continued to imbue his record with impressive victories, including a submission win over Giant Baba in February 64 and over Freddie Blassie later that year. Another test of Sammartino's endurance came when he battled Waldo Von Erich to an 81-minute draw that...
So I want to explain a little something about Giant Baba. I'm sorry. I'm going to spout off facts. If you don't like it, you get off the video. I don't give a flying crap. But when it comes to Giant Baba was a famous Japanese wrestler who was taught under the tutelage of Antonio Inoki. I think that's who it was. Or no, Antonio Inoki and Giant Baba had the same teacher. Excuse me. I had to correct myself there. And they are both, if you know anything about pro wrestling history and the connections made there, Giant Baba was basically the reason why there was a whole other promotion in the 90s for Japan. It was All Japan, and were many different amazing Japanese wrestlers, one of them being Mitsuharu Misawa, and where the other four pillars of heaven came from as well. And we may end up doing discussions on the other three, but it's the fact that he even connects to wrestling history like that is a major deal, and it makes so much sense why Giant Baba's a big deal, because he's interacted it's so interesting how it connects here and there. It's really interesting to me, especially Bruno and Giant Baba interacting with each other. Buddy Rogers and Bruno. I'm kind of curious who else is there. And Gorilla Monsoon, for anybody who doesn't know, I didn't even know he was a wrestler. Makes sense that he had a nickname like that, but he would eventually become a commentator for the early 80s WWF. And that's a lot of great connections right then and there.
August before defeating him in subsequent rematches. In early '65,
they had some
Sammartino
color
gained a new
back
rival
then
in a young
too, so it's been
cowboy
around
Bill
for a
Watts,
while.
after the ornery Watts turned on him following a tag team match. The two fought over the title, a rivalry
Bill
that
Watts?
included a Texas death match, but Bruno would prevail in the end, including in a 2 out of 3 falls bout where he rendered Bill Watts unable to continue. While Sammartino is most identified with being the king of wrestling in New York, he did venture out to other territories to defend the championship. These regions included the Sheik's Big Time Wrestling in Detroit, Michigan, his old stomping ground of Frank Tunney's Toronto group, and even Stu Hart's Stampede, where he won a pair of matches over Waldo Von Erich in the summer of '65. He even defended the title for Jim Barnett's Australian territory in April '66, defeating Killer.
Hold on, there's two names that just popped up. We'll talk in a minute. Stampede Wrestling is where the Hart family came from. If you know who the Hart family are, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, and all the other affiliated wrestlers for that camp that through marriage or by blood, that is a huge deal. And then another person they just barely mentioned, Killer Kowalski. That is the teacher of Triple H. Guys, this is wild to me. This is my first time ever finding out more and more about Bruno Sammartino, because look, if we can literally go through different wrestlers, heck, this might be a new video idea I do in the future, but we'll see. We'll see.
Kowalski. As the 60s wore on, Sammartino continued to fell all challengers, including Professor Toru Tanaka, Hans Mortier, and Johnny Valentine. In '68, Sammartino began suffering through a serious back injury, continuing to defend the belt into the start of his reign's 6th year, but he ailed terribly and asked to drop the title. The date of the impending title switch continued to be put off, while Sammartino forged painfully ahead, dispatching George Steele in a heated rivalry that culminated with Texas Death and stretcher matches that year, and also warring with the Sheik, toppling the legendary Madman in steel cage matches in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. 1969 dawned, and still Sammartino held the title, his request to lose the belt placed on the back burner. All the while, he remained a gallant champion, by now having dozens upon dozens of MSG sellouts to his name. The likes of Ivan Koloff, Crusher Verdun, and Beppo Mongol, which was a young Nikolai Volkov, all ended in Bruno's radar, but were put away like every challenger before them. As the 60s drew to a close and the 70s dawned, McMahon continued with Sammartino as his champion, setting new attendance records at Madison Square Garden in 1970 for his matches with Verdun. But Sammartino finally made it abundantly clear that he needed time away to recover, and come '71, perhaps the most unthinkable title change ever took place, at least in the eyes of the fans. On Monday, January 18th, 1971, before a new record of over 21,600 fans at the Garden, Sammartino lost the belt in 15 minutes to Ivan Koloff, ending the unsinkable reign at 2,803 days, or 7 years, 8 months.
That is unseen today. The only other person that ever got that close was Roman Reigns. And it was half of that. Half of that. You can round that up and technically say 8 years, but still, that's 7.5 months. Or 7.5 years. Guys, he went from 2 decades holding the belt. Almost 2 decades holding the belt. That is unheard of. Like, I've heard some crazy stuff in my day, like hearing about Flair wrestling for about 6 hours. But this? On top of the back injury? This Bruno Sammartino guy is not just a legend, he is basically a set point for a lot of guys, man.
As the now legendary story goes, fans inside MSG did not immediately register that Sammartino had lost the belt, and sat there in stunned silence, save for a few audible weeps and gasps. Sammartino himself claims that he thought he'd gone deaf due to the sweeping dearth of sound immediately following the referee's 3 count. The immortal Bruno Sammartino had been brought back to earth by the unruly Koloff, signalling the end of an era. Aside from 2 matches wrestled in February 71, Sammartino took off for 5 months after the title loss. Upon his return in June, he and Dominic DeNucci defeated the Mongols to win the WWF's International Tag Team titles, though they only reigned with the belts for 2 weeks. In the latter part of 1971, Sammartino embarked on a run in Japan, where he found himself working opposite Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki, as well as matches for various NWA groups in early 72. But by the spring, Sammartino found himself back in New York, working underneath while Pedro Morales proved his mettle as the new big champion. Sammartino faced Morales on Saturday, September 30th, 1972, before 22,000 fans at Shea Stadium in Queens, New York. This was to be a title match between 2 good friends that had recently come to blows during a tag team bout.
Flair
with fans
or
reportedly
Dusty
more in favour of the new reigning champion than the near 37-year-old Bruno, the 2 heroes battled to a draw after 65 minutes under a cold early autumn rain. With $140,000 plus
go look
drawn
him
at the
up.
gates
You're going to
the
see
two
a lot of
babyface
similarities
icons
between
collide,
him and
there
Hogan.
seemed to be plenty of life in a possible Sammartino encore. In 1973, Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. approached Sammartino with the request that he once again become champion.
Right there. I
But
didn't even have to
sadly
say
and
anything.
understandably, Bruno refused due to the grind of the schedule. In order to win him back, they made major concessions, including a reduced schedule where he would only work major arenas and would receive a respectable percentage of the gate of every show he wrestled on. And so it came to pass on December 10th, 1973, when 9 days after Stan Stasiak scored a controversial pinfall win over the champion Morales, Sammartino defeated Stasiak at the Garden in 12 minutes to capture the gold for a second time. Bruno picked up right where he left off as a popular champion and mega draw in the Northeast, selling the Garden out in title matches against Nikolai Volkov, Freddie Blassie, and Killer Kowalski. He even entered into a feud with former protege Spyros Arion, the Iron Greek, after Arion mauled Sammartino's student Larry Zbyszko after a match in 1975. Sammartino and Arion's feud encompassed several violent fights, culminating in a Greek death match. In this match, Sammartino ripped and tore at Arion's injured leg before submitting him to a half Boston Crab, causing his wounded opponent to need assistance back to the locker room. In April 76, Sammartino suffered a legitimately broken neck during a title defense against the hard-hitting Stan Hansen after a botched body slam. In storyline, it was said that Hansen's devastating lariat is what did the deed, and it looked as though the company would be without its champion. But Bruno, after pleading from Vince Sr., made it to a match at Shea Stadium with Hansen 2 months later, and did manage to win the bout. The two continued to battle deep into 76, with Sammartino once more vanquishing his difficult challenger. But with that lingering neck injury, Bruno once again requested to drop the belt. Before that title loss would come to pass, Bruno...
Okay. This is like the wrestling geek coming out of me for a moment. Like, that's crazy. Stan Hansen is not only a legend in America, but he's a legend in Japan. Like, that's crazy. He literally spent almost, like, I don't even know when he's going to retire, and he's already interacted with just about everybody in every decade almost. And it's only 1973. And this is all before some of the other legends start popping up. This is before Hogan gets a whole ordeal. Like, the end of the 70s is when Hogan kind of gets his ground. And then, of course, early 80s, WrestleMania 3 happens in 83. Macho Man and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat have their match. Oh my gosh. Like, there's so much here. Like, this is all before. Like, this man isn't just a legend. He's not, like, this guy is not only a trailblazer, this guy is the standard for wrestling history, it seems like. Genuinely. Like, I genuinely see why so many of professional wrestlers nowadays have so much respect. Like, this man has just done it all for wrestling so far.
Continued making successful defenses against a who's who of wrestling villains. These included the barnstorming Bruiser Brody, previous champion Stan Stasiak, Olympic powerhouse Ken Patera, and Baron von Raschke, with the crowds at the monthly Garden shows continuing to demonstrate Sammartino's star appeal. By the time of the Raschke match at the Garden in April 77, however, Sammartino was 41 years old, having reigned as WWF champion for 11 of the previous 14 years. And despite his more favourable schedule, Bruno was ready to move on from the demanding role of being New York's leading man. But it wasn't in New York, but rather Baltimore on April 30th, 1977, when Sammartino lost the title for the second and final time. The man deposing him was the charismatic superstar Billy Graham, who, unlike Koloff and Stasiak, was not a vessel for transitioning the belt
take a look at this man. Baby. Look at him. Look at that. Does that look familiar to you? Literally, the physique. Not one-to-one. The hair. Blonde hair. And there's a moment where before he goes up to the ring, he does the double bicep. Wow. I'm speechless. I'm just gonna...
face. Sammartino even acted as one of Graham's occasional challengers during Superstar's 10-month reign with the belt, falling short in regular bouts and in cage matches through the remainder of 77 and into 78. In fact, when Bruno lost a cage match to Graham in February 78 in Philadelphia, it was through sheer dumb luck, as a devastating strike knocked Graham through the doorway and to victory on the floor. Sammartino wrestled a more sparse schedule as the 70s ground down, which included rekindling old hostilities with heels of the past, including Koloff and Steele. He also had new enemies in High Chief Peter Maivia, Greg Valentine, Johnny Valiant, and Hossein Arab.
The Iron Sheik. The Rock's grandpa. Wow.
The future Iron Sheik. He even contended for the sometimes forgotten North American title, challenging Pat Patterson in the summer of 1979. The previous year, however, Sammartino moved further into semi-activity, when he began providing color commentary duties on episodes of All-Star Wrestling and Championship Wrestling alongside host Vincent K. McMahon. But he had one more good run in him, a run that the generation of fans following his career prime know very well. At the turn of the 80s, Sammartino's protege Larry Zbyszko challenged Bruno to an exhibition match to prove his worth. A match which Sammartino continuously turned down before ultimately accepting. In the bout, Zbyszko was overmatched, and then he resorted to violent treachery, turning on his mentor and busting him open with a chair. Sammartino swore revenge, and in the coming months, the acrimony built masterfully. Sellout bouts throughout the spring of 1980 failed to settle the grudge until they waged war in a steel cage at Shea Stadium that August before more than 36,000 fans. After beating Zbyszko to a pulp, Sammartino calmly strode out the door of the cage as the clear victor. Come 1981, Sammartino wrestled what appeared to be his final matches, winding his career down after more than 20 years, the extreme majority of which were as an unassailable headliner. His final match with what was now the WWF came on October 4th, 1981, when he defeated old nemesis George Steele at the Meadowlands in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Later that week, he wrestled in 3 matches for All Japan Pro Wrestling, the final of which pitted he and Giant Baba against Tiger Jeet Singh and Umanosuke Ueda in Tokyo.
Wow.
Not long after his retirement, Sammartino actually filed a lawsuit against Vince Sr. over unpaid gate percentages from his second reign as champion. Vince Jr. settled the suit with an agreement for Bruno to return as commentator, which he did in September 84. Beginning in 1985, Sammartino returned to the ring on a part-time basis, usually working tag team matches alongside the likes of Andre the Giant, Paul Orndorff, and Tito Santana, while also supporting son David Sammartino, most prolifically at the first WrestleMania. He even got involved in a couple of very intense feuds, one with Rowdy Roddy Piper that culminated in a steel cage match at Boston Garden in 86, and one with the Macho Man Randy Savage later that year over the IC title. WrestleMania 2 marked what was the only pay-per-view bout for Sammartino and for Pedro Morales as well, when both men worked the 20-man Battle Royal in Chicago, Illinois. What turned out to be Bruno's final match occurred in Baltimore on August 29, 1987, when he and world champion Hulk Hogan defeated King...
You're joking.
Kong Bundy and the one-man gang. After finishing his WWF commentary career in 1988, Bruno did become an outspoken critic of the company due to various scandals and culture issues, while making guest appearances for Herb Abrams' UWF and even for WCW. But by 2013, Sammartino had reconciled with the company and headlined the Hall of Fame class in the same year in New York, allowing him to headline Madison Square Garden one last time. Upon his passing in 2018 at the age of 82, tributes and memories of the living legend all affirmed what had been known for years, that Bruno Sammartino was more than just a champion inside the ring, and that he was a man of honor and integrity that walked the walk and meant every word that he breathed. Sammartino's stature as a genuine man's man in every walk of life will forever keep his legacy living. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know.
Thank you, Cultaholic Wrestling, for making that video and teaching me a little bit more about the man known as Bruno Sammartino. Holy crap. Genuinely, this is something else. Wow. I had no idea how important. Genuinely, think about this. Hogan, and I doubt this is the case. And when you mean by giving, and what I'm about to say, and what you mean by what I'm about to say is this. I'm sorry, I'm still like discombobulated after watching that. Is this giving somebody the rub means, hey, kind of passing the torch, just telling them like, all right, my time is up, but it's your turn. And the fact that he did a tag match with the guy that's basically the whole reason why wrestling became a huge ordeal for kids, for people that enjoyed pro wrestling, gave him like, yeah, go ahead, it's your turn. That's just crazy. Holy crap. Like, I still don't know what to say. I'm very much amazed. I'm glad people memorialized him. I'm glad he got in the Hall of Fame. He deserves it, genuinely. Oh my goodness. Whew. Well, now with that, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I think from what, I'm not sure what I'm going to call it. Well, maybe we'll call it a day in wrestling history or something like that. I'm going to workshop a title, but this is something important. I want to get an idea for myself. Like, look, I had no idea about any of this. I'll probably do some stuff that I know, of course, in the future, but like, if there's stuff that I don't know, I want to start off with that and give off some facts here and there from what I can remember from up here, because there's a lot here. So, yeah, we'll call it a day in wrestling history. And shout out to the Cultaholic Wrestling channel for providing the information that we've seen there. Thank you guys again for watching the video. If you want to become a part of the Bernhardt Byron Brigade, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, ring the bell for more future uploads. This is the Captain signing off. I bid you adieu. I'm out. Peace.